Hey, this is Greg from GP Animations. Within the past couple of weeks, I've received quite a few emails asking me about artwork that I use for my mobile applications or just drawing techniques, software used, scaling, stuff like that. So I figured I'd record a little tutorial video to show you how I personally do artwork. If it's just for UI design, I tend to just draw it all in Adobe Photoshop, but if it's more for a game, I'll use Adobe Flash because it's vector. It scales up and down without losing any quality. It exports PNGs, and to me, when combined with like a Wacom drawing tablet, it just feels like you're drawing on paper. Whereas Illustrator, you're more just drawing with like vector points and the pen tool and everything. Where in Flash, you can use a brush or pencil tool. So one of the first things I would do to begin an application is to start a new Flash file. I would set the dimensions for the iPad 3 and 4 dimensions, just because that's the biggest resolution that I know of devices that I would be developing for. And once I have it very large, it's easy to scale it down in Photoshop for any other device. And that's much better than having to scale it up, in my opinion. I would just do a quick sketch of the artwork I would need, then I would trace it and import that into like a sprite sheet creator, or if it's not an animated sprite, just put it right into the app. So I'll just do a quick rundown here to show you what I'm talking about. So I'll just choose like a light gray color for my sketch layer, and here I'm going to use the brush tool because I feel like it just seems like very much like how I would draw with a pencil, very loose lines like this. So let's say I'm drawing a little guy here. He's going to be my character. In fact, maybe he'll just be a little ball that hops around the screen or something. So there's my rough sketch. I would lock him down, create a new layer, change the brush tool to the color I needed, and then go through and just more carefully trace the sketch layer. Make it a little bit more neater than what I initially done, just to get my initial idea down. And then just erase any stray marks. Could fill them in with the paint bucket. And there you go, you hide your sketch layer and there's your guy. If you want to add some shading, I use this little plugin called Toon Titan, which you can import that color into. So say if I want to add shading to the guy here, I could find a corresponding shadow color or highlight. If you don't have Toon Titan, it's not a big deal. You can just choose like a darker shade of the color you're using. So I could choose a darker red. Take my pencil tool. Let's do, say, like a 2-point pencil. And that's where I want my shade and highlight. Fill in the shade. Choose a lighter color for the highlight. Delete the pencil tool. And now it looks like he's got a little bit more depth. And then you can just use your selection tool and adjust how much shading and highlighting you have. If you're not very fond of this kind of brush style, you can use the pencil tool instead. And the benefit of that is you can also use the shape tools then. So since he's built on basic shapes here, we can just do circle. Oops. And circles for his eyes. And then just draw his mouth. And with the selection tool, you can go through and adjust shapes as you need them. And fill them in just as before. You can even select the lines and delete them, then use your brush tool in conjunction with the pencil tool. The drawback of using pencil tool versus brush is when you scale up and down. So if you scale up, the line looks pretty thin, and then when you scale down, it's still trying to keep that same thickness, so it's getting a little thicker. You can change the thickness when you scale up or down, or you can also just go into modify, transform, shape, and convert the lines to fills. But that does have unexpected problems. So it's not that big of a deal to go in there and say, like, you scale them down, now it looks a little thicker. Just change the stroke down. It really just depends on the type of line style you're looking for. So now for animated sprites versus just regular PNGs. So if this was just a guy I needed just like that, one thing I could do is just select him, convert him into a movie clip, right click the movie clip, export PNG sequence, and since this is a bigger resolution, I'll call it at 2x for iOS Retina devices, and save them. I can name off our stage, and then for this guy, say I want him to be an animated sprite, I can also convert him into a movie clip. And then just do keyframing or frame by frame animation here. So I'll just insert a frame. Maybe we'll just make his mouth move. And now with this onion skinning effect on, I can see the previous frame, so I know where his mouth last was. And then I can continue down that path, add another frame. And now I can see the past 2 frames here, where you can adjust the onion skinning to just see the last frame that you drew. Change his mouth again. And then using the color picker tool, just select the colors. Let me turn off onion skinning. And now I'm using the comma key and the period key on the keyboard and scrubbing through the frames. So say that's all the animation that we wanted from this guy. Then I could right click, export PNG sequence, and then I would even just make a new folder for him. And export. Open up our folder here. So if this is going to be a universal app for both Retina and non-Retina devices, you can open them in Photoshop. Scale them down by 50%. My math is terrible. So what is that, 81, I think. And then I would just save for web as a PNG. Remove the @2x. And then in our folder, now we have the artwork for Retina and non-Retina. For the sprites, you can just import those right into your sprite sheet generator of choice. I usually use Texture Packer because I work with Corona SDK and the quick Photoshop plugin a lot, and Texture Packer supports both. Sometimes I'll also use Animo. If I just export out the SWF file directly from Flash, Animo can take that, and you don't have to worry about PNG exporting. But yeah, that's about all I do to create artwork. Just do a rough sketch, trace over it in Flash, and then export it and resize it in Photoshop as needed. And then, of course, if you were actually putting this into an app, if this were your direct folder, you should make a folder called Images, and just keep everything in there. And then you can have your main.lua file in here and call all the artwork from Images. And that's all you need. So I hope this helps. If you have any more questions, just leave them on my blog, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. Thanks.